Bonanza ended in 1973, but the Ponderosa never really did. Its cast simply scattered. 6 of the 8 men in this episode are gone now, buried in cemeteries from Texas to California to Colma. 2 are still alive. What happened to all of them is harder than the legend. Number 1. For 14 years, he was the voice that told America what a father was supposed to sound like. Lorne Greene played Ben Cartwright, the thrice-widowed patriarch raising 3 grown sons by 3 different dead wives on a ranch the size of Rhode Island. The performance felt less like acting than like a father who had simply agreed to be filmed. Some of that came from his pre-Bonanza life. Greene was born Lyon Hyman Greene in Ottawa, Ontario in 1915 to Russian Jewish immigrants. By his late 20s, he was the principal newsreader for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And when the Second World War broke out, his deep delivery of casualty reports earned him a name Canadians never forgot. They called him the Voice of Doom. After serving as a flying officer in the Royal Canadian Air Force, he founded a school in Toronto where a young Leslie Nielsen and a young James Doohan once sat in his classroom. By the mid-1960s, Bonanza was paying him upwards of $10,000 an episode. He married twice. The first marriage, to Rita Hands of Toronto, lasted from 1938 to 1960 and produced twins, Charles and Belinda. His second wife was the actress Nancy Deal, who gave up her own career so theirs would not collide, and together they had a daughter, Jillian, who married filmmaker Sam Raimi in 1993. In August 1987, Greene entered St. John's Hospital in Santa Monica for surgery on a perforated ulcer. Pneumonia followed. He died in that hospital bed on September 11, 1987, at age 72, with Nancy, Jillian, and the twins all in the room. Michael Landon had visited days earlier and told reporters afterward that Greene had been Ben Cartwright to the end. He rests at Hillside Memorial Park in Culver City, California, in the courts of the book Outer Lawn, Block 5, Plot 800, Grave 8, beside Nancy. Ben Cartwright was a father America trusted at a glance. Lorne Greene was a Canadian newsreader whose voice had once told a country how many of its soldiers were not coming home. Number 2. Bonanza needed a hothead, and they found one in a 22-year-old former javelin thrower from New Jersey who had been born Eugene Maurice Orowitz. Michael Landon played Little Joe Cartwright, the youngest of the 3 brothers, the one with the dark curls and the horse that always reared at the end of the title sequence. He played Little Joe with the wide-eyed energy of a man who had not yet learned how to lose, which felt right, because at age 22, he largely had not. A torn ligament in his throwing arm had killed his javelin scholarship at USC. He pulled hot cans in a soup cannery until a co-worker who moonlighted as an actor invited him to a Warner Brothers screen test. A year later, he was on screen in I Was a Teenage Werewolf. 2 years after that, he was on the Ponderosa. By 1967, he was earning $12,000 an episode and selling his own Bonanza scripts to the production at roughly $2,500 apiece. 3 marriages followed across his life. His first wife was Dodie Levy Fraser, whose young son, Mark Fraser, he adopted at age 8 as Mark Landon. Marjorie Lynn No, his second wife, gave him a 19-year marriage that produced 4 biological children and an adopted daughter. Cindy Clerico was the third. Between adoptions and biological children, he raised 9. In April 1991, after months of stomach pain, doctors diagnosed him with pancreatic cancer of the exocrine variety. By the time anyone found it, the disease was inoperable. Instead of disappearing into the standard celebrity silence, he went on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, asked the country to pray for him, and used the appearance to condemn the tabloid coverage of his illness. He died at his home in Malibu on the 1st of July 1991 at age 54. Cindy was alone with him in the room. His last words were 3 of them. I love you. Landon was entombed in a private, glass-fronted family mausoleum at Hillside Memorial Park in Culver City, California. A menorah hangs above a small bench of family mementos. The mausoleum sits a short walk from the lawn grave where Lorne Greene was already waiting. Little Joe was the youngest brother on the most-watched ranch in America. Michael Landon smoked 4 packs of unfiltered menthol cigarettes a day for 30 years, built 2 more hit television series after Bonanza ended, and was given roughly 3 months between his diagnosis and his death. Number 3. Of all the men who ever wore a Cartwright hat or stood in a Ponderosa scene, only 2 are still alive in 2026, and the older of the 2 arrived on the show in its very last season. Tim Matheson was 24 when he joined Bonanza in 1972 as Griff King, a parolee learning to trust a father figure for the first time after coming out of prison. He played Griff with a softness around the eyes that surprised viewers expecting a tougher type. The role lasted only 1 season, which was all Bonanza had left. Before the Ponderosa, Matheson had already been working for 11 years. He was born Timothy Lewis Matheson in Glendale, California, on the last day of 1947. By 13, he was acting opposite Robert Young on Window on Main Street. 3 years later, he was the voice of the boy hero on the original Johnny Quest. After Bonanza, his career simply kept growing. In 1978, he played Eric Otter Stratton in National Lampoon's Animal House. Then came Steven Spielberg's 1941, Clint Eastwood's Magnum Force, and a long run as Vice President John Hoynes on The West Wing that earned him 2 Primetime Emmy nominations. His longest marriage to Megan Murphy lasted from 1985 to 2010 and produced 3 children, Cooper, Molly, and Emma. Today, at age 78, Matheson stars as Doc Mullins on the Netflix series Virgin River, which has been in production since 2019 and is still running. He lives in California. The Marine reservist who once played a parolee has been on a camera or a microphone somewhere for 65 straight years. Griff King was a parolee learning to trust the world again. Tim Matheson was a child actor who never stopped working, not for a single decade across 6 of them. Number 4. The date was May 13, 1972, the day a routine surgery killed the most physically imposing man on American television and effectively killed Bonanza along with him. Dan Blocker was Hoss Cartwright, the middle of the 3 brothers, the 6'4", 300-pound mountain of a man who was always one of 3 things at any moment of an episode: hungry, embarrassed, or quietly heartbroken. Blocker played him with such warmth that the character could break a chair across a saloon and still feel like the kindest man in the room. He was the heart of the Ponderosa, and the room lost its temperature when he was gone. He was born Bobby Dan Davis Blocker in DeKalb, Texas, on December 10, 1928, weighing 14 pounds at delivery, according to family records, the largest baby ever born in Bowie County. At Sewell Ross State Teachers College, he played football and earned a master's degree in dramatic arts. Then he was drafted, served as a sergeant in the Korean War, and came home with a Purple Heart. He taught school in Texas and New Mexico and was working toward a Ph.D. at UCLA when Bonanza found him. He married Dolphia Parker on August 25, 1952. They had met under bad circumstances at Sul Ross, where she had been on the stage crew for a production of Arsenic and Old Lace and had been forced to ask him to leave the auditorium for heckling the cast. Over the next 20 years, they had 4 children: Dirk, David, and the twin girls Deborah Lee and Dana Lynn. In 1971, Blocker leased a house in Switzerland and moved his children there for 2 years, partly to educate them in Europe, and partly because he could not abide his country's politics regarding Vietnam. He entered Daniel Freeman Hospital in Inglewood, California, in early May 1972 for what was supposed to be a routine gallbladder operation. The surgery itself went fine. He was sent home. On the morning of May 13th, he woke complaining of shortness of breath. A blood clot had moved from his legs into his lungs. He was rushed back to Daniel Freeman, where he died that afternoon at age 43. The producers, faced with the impossibility of replacing him, became the first American writers to incorporate the off-screen death of a cast member into a continuing show. The series was canceled the following season. Blocker rests in his family plot at Woodman Cemetery in DeKalb, Texas, beside his father, his mother, and his sister. The headstone is plain stone and reads only, B. Dan D. Blocker. On screen, Hoss Cartwright spent 13 seasons being the kindest man on any cattle drive he rode. Off it, Dan Blocker was a Purple Heart veteran with a master's in drama who was on the way to becoming Dr. Blocker when a Western interrupted his dissertation. Number 5. Some careers happen in the wrong order. The biggest job arrives second. David Canary's first big television job was the ranch foreman Canary on Bonanza, the working cowboy who got things done while the Cartwrights talked things through. The performance had a square-shouldered ease to it. He was never a Cartwright by blood, but the camera treated him like one, which is half of acting. Canary was born in Elwood, Indiana, on August 25, 1938, and grew up in Matheson, Ohio. A football scholarship took him to the University of Cincinnati, where he was a 3-year letterman and somehow also graduated with a degree in music as a trained baritone. The Denver Broncos drafted him in 1960. He turned them down. New York and acting won. He left Bonanza in 1970 in a contract dispute and returned in 1972 only after Dan Blocker's death created an emergency in the writer's room. In December 1983, he joined the cast of All My Children as twin brothers, Adam and Stuart Chandler, one twin ruthless, one gentle, and played both for 30 years across more than 1,200 episodes, winning 5 Daytime Emmy Awards for the dual role. He had 2 marriages. His first wife, the actress Julie M. Anderson, gave him a daughter, Lisa. The second wife, Maureen Maloney, gave him a son, Christopher, and a daughter, Catherine. Maureen was with him on November 16, 2015, when he died of natural causes at an assisted living facility in Wilton, Connecticut, at age 77. His family asked for donations to the Alzheimer's Association in lieu of flowers, the quiet way American families say which disease shaped a final decade. Services were private. The burial location was never released by family wish. Canary quietly held the Ponderosa together for the last 6 years of its run. David Canary spent the 30 years afterward winning Emmys for playing 2 brothers on a soap opera that most of the people who knew him from Bonanza never even watched. Number 6. 6 seasons in, the oldest Cartwright son walked away from television's most reliable paycheck and into a kind of professional exile. Pernell Roberts was Adam Cartwright, the eldest brother, the one in the black hat, the one who had read books. He gave Adam an interior life the writing room did not always provide for him. Long pauses, wariness in the eyes, a sense of a man who was smarter than the room he was standing in. Adam was the brother who looked like he might leave at any moment. Eventually, the actor playing him actually did. Roberts was born May 18, 1928, in Waycross, Georgia, the son of a Dr. Pepper salesman. By his own admission, he flunked out of college 3 times. After serving in the United States Marine Corps from 1946 to 1948, he took whatever work would feed him. Tombstone maker, railroad riveter, regional theater. By 1955, he had a Drama Desk Award for an off-Broadway production of Macbeth and a Broadway debut. Then Bonanza arrived, and within 6 years he could not stand it. In a 1964 interview with the Washington Post, Roberts said he had not grown at all in his 4 years on the series, called the role impotent, and complained that everywhere he turned the father image was waiting. He pressured NBC to stop hiring white actors to play non-white characters. The same year, he marched at Selma. His character was written off-screen with the vague explanation that Adam had moved away. Roberts was married 4 times. His first wife was Vera Mowry, a theater history professor at Washington State University. They divorced in 1959 and had a son named Jonathan Christopher, who in 1989 died at age 38 on a motorcycle. The next 2 marriages to Judith Anna Lebrecht and then Cara Knack ended in divorce. His 4th wife, Eleanor Criswell, was with him at the end. In his later years, after every other Cartwright had died, Roberts began calling himself, half-joking, Pernell, the last one, Roberts. He kept a subscription to Bonanza Gold magazine. The show's reruns were what he watched when he wanted to see his old friends. Pancreatic cancer found him in his late 70s and took him on January 24, 2010, at his Malibu home, age 81. He was cremated and his ashes were given to family. A memorial service was held in his hometown of Waycross, Georgia, in August 2010, and a memorial reference is recorded at Ascension Cemetery in Lake Forest, California. He left no physical headstone anywhere on Earth. Adam Cartwright was the brother who carried the books and the bad moods and the look of someone who needed to leave. Pernell Roberts walked away in 1965 and won an entirely new career as a chief surgeon on Trapper John, MD 14 years later, the Emmy nominations finally arriving in the medical setting that Bonanza had never been able to give him. Subscribe before the next entry. The next man on this list died alone in a leaking house and his body was found 10 days after the fact. Number 7. Hop Sing was the comic relief on a Western that took itself seriously most weeks. The man who played him died in a way the show never wrote. Victor Sen Yung was born Sen Yung in San Francisco on October 18, 1915. His mother died in the 1919 flu epidemic when he was 4. With his wife gone, his father placed him and his younger sister Rosemary in a children's shelter and returned to China to remarry, coming back 3 years later with a new wife. Sen Yung went on to study animal husbandry at the University of California, Berkeley, before he ever picked up a script. His film debut came in 1938 as Jimmy Chan in Charlie Chan in Honolulu, and he appeared in roughly a dozen Chan films as the detective's number 2 son. By Bonanza, the studios were listing him as Sen Yung, Victor Sen Yung, and sometimes simply Victor Yung, as if his actual name were a detail the audience would not bother to remember. He played Hop Sing, the Cartwright cook, in 107 episodes across all 14 seasons. The audience response was strong enough that the show's creator, David Dortort, eventually wrote whole episodes around him. Sen Yung was paid a fraction of what the Cartwright leads earned for the same hours of work. In 1972, on a Pacific Southwest Airlines flight from Sacramento to Burbank, 2 Bulgarian men hijacked the plane. The FBI stormed the aircraft on the tarmac in San Francisco, and in the gunfire, Sen Yung was shot in the lower back. He survived. The 2 hijackers and 1 other passenger did not. By 1980, he was living alone in a small bungalow in North Hollywood. Supplementing his work with a mail-order pottery business, he ran out of his kitchen, curing the clay in a gas oven. The oven was faulty. Sometime around the last day of October, the gas began leaking. On November 9th, a friend named Robert Bond came to check on him because his telephone had gone unanswered for over a week, and the smell of gas pouring from the house told everyone what had happened before anyone went inside. The body was so badly decomposed that the police could not immediately identify it. His age was 65. Pernell Roberts, who had walked away from Bonanza 15 years earlier and had rarely spoken about it since, paid for the funeral and delivered the eulogy himself. No other Bonanza colleague attended on record. Sen Yung rests at Green Lawn Memorial Park in Colma, California, the small city south of San Francisco that calls itself the City of the Silent because the dead outnumber the living by over 1,000 to 1. Hop Sing was the cheerful Chinese cook at the center of America's longest-running color western. Victor Sen Yung was a Berkeley graduate who survived an FBI tarmac shootout, wrote a wok cookbook, and ended his life in a house his colleagues had to be told about by the smell. Tell us in the comments which moment in this video hit you the hardest and why. We read all of them. Number 8. Of the 8 people in this video, only 2 are still alive in 2026, and the younger of those 2 is the one who walked away from Hollywood on purpose at age 22 and never went back. Mitch Vogel was born in Alhambra, California on January 17, 1956. He started on stage at age 10 in productions of Tom Sawyer, Heidi, Peter Pan, and The Wizard of Oz. By 12, he had a part in the Lucille Ball and Henry Fonda comedy Yours, Mine, and Ours. Then at age 13, he was playing Lucius McCaslin, opposite Steve McQueen in The Reavers, the William Faulkner adaptation that earned him a Golden Globe nomination for Most Promising Male Newcomer. McQueen took to him so warmly during filming that he invited Vogel to sleepovers at the McQueen house with his own son Chad. Bonanza brought him into its final 3 seasons in 1970 as Jamie Hunter, the freckled, red-headed orphan Ben Cartwright, eventually adopted as a 4th son. The role was created so that the patriarch's fatherly speeches would have someone young enough to receive them, since the original 3 Cartwright sons had aged past needing them. In 1978, after his final film role in Texas Detour with Patrick Wayne, he stopped. He was 22 years old. The next move was eastward, to Pittsburgh, where he formed a rock band and started playing guitar in clubs. Eventually, he came back to Southern California, married, and raised 2 daughters. Today, at age 70, Vogel is semi-retired, still singing in a rock band, and still occasionally directing and performing in church plays. He has attended Bonanza fan conventions in California and in Liverpool, England. Jamie Hunter Cartwright was the orphan a wealthy Nevada family chose to take in and give a last name. Mitch Vogel was a child actor with a Golden Globe nomination, a sleepover friendship with Steve McQueen, and the rare clarity at age 22 to walk away from all of it and pick up a guitar. They left the Ponderosa scattered across a continent. DeKalb, Colma, Culver City, Wilton, Waycross, and 2 California houses where the porch lights are still on.